Welcome back to the Jaco Report. Opponents of labor unions think they can get a so-called right-to-work measure on the Missouri ballot this year, and if they do, Missourians will get to vote on whether to outlaw mandatory union membership in Missouri. Missouri Republicans, led by House Speaker Tim Jones and Lieutenant Governor Peter Kinder, say right to work, or as they now call it, freedom to work, is a top priority. The Missouri Chamber of Commerce is also supporting right to work. Organized labor, of course, is opposed. 24 states currently have right to work law. Those laws say basically that anyone who goes to work in any occupation where there's a labor union cannot be forced to join that union. Supporters say right-to-work states have created more jobs than elsewhere. Opponents say right-to-work lowers average wages. They also say it would help destroy labor unions and the gains they've made for workers. Well, joining us this morning to argue against right-to-work is Bob Soudier. Bob is head of the St. Louis Labor Council, which is the umbrella group for organized labor in the metro area. Making the economic case for right-to-work is Dr. Howard Wall. Professor Wall is head of the John Hammond Center for Free Enterprise over at Lindenwood University. Gentlemen, welcome aboard to both of you. I appreciate it. Howard, let me start with you first. What, in your mind, is the basic, just very bottom line, compelling economic case for a right-to-work law?
Well, I think the right-to-work laws, it's often painted as an extreme, like anti-union, non-union. Myself, it's more the balance of, say, negotiating power, the balance between unions and firms, and how that affects the for the state as a whole, rather than you know, being pro-union or anti-union or pro-firm or anti-firm or what have you.
So is there any compelling economic case that a right-to-work law would actually help goose the economy, create jobs, make the economy more vital?
Yeah, the idea is that if you have a right to work, or a state that is not right to work, then a firm setting up or going into the state will face at least the risk, and in some states maybe the high probability, that the workforce would end up being unionized and restrictive and so on. So they, as a result of that threat, they might not even go there or even expand existing firms.
Now, Bob, it's fascinating to me that as much noise has been made about right to work, you've got two of the oldest line industrial states, Indiana and Michigan, that have become right to work states. What in your mind is going on here? You guys obviously think this is just a god-awful idea, but you've got states that have a serious industrial presence who've decided, well, let's give this a shot. What are they missing when they do that?
Charles, I think what happened in those two states is that this was a legislative grab by the Republicans in both of those states in their houses, where they passed these bills under the cloak of darkness, and it's just a way to hurt workers. You know, right-to-work laws hurt workers.
In what ways?
Well, it lowers wages, it lowers benefits, it puts more workers into poverty, into school lunch programs, and what have you. Okay,
Howard, we have heard figures from right-to-work supporters pointing to the job growth in right-to-work states. Does the literature show that actually you're getting greater than average job growth in right-to-work states than in other states?
Well, as you'd expect, most of the evidence thrown out by both sides is hogwash. It's really overstating the case. And yes, right-to-work states have had faster job growth, but that's because of other reasons. The part that can be attributed to them being right to work is much smaller, although the studies still show that it is positive. But it's nothing like the difference between Texas and Ohio, where it's, you know, an extra 1 million jobs.
Yeah. Well, you know, Charles, I think you're also talking about in right-to-work states where there's a smaller workforce. So a percentage increase of a smaller workforce may sound percentage higher. However, it could be less people than in a big industrial state.
Let's take one of the points that Howard made, which is it might discourage large new corporations from setting up shop here. For example, I note that the Japanese automakers, when they've set up full-scale manufacturing plants, have almost 100% gone to southern right-to-work states, Tennessee, South Carolina, Texas, places like that. Is this telling us something, that right-to-work states can actually lure these jobs in?
Well, when you talk about right-to-work states, what they're doing is tax incentives to these employers for them to come there. It's not necessarily whether they want to be union or not, because if, you know, there are in right-to-work states, there's unions. And there's many of these auto manufacturers, Mazda and a few others, that are unionized.
Is there, economically, is there a philosophical problem with the so-called free ride? That is, someone comes into a union shop. Someone doesn't have to join that union. but they are essentially getting the same wages and the same benefits as the union employees, and therefore are getting what's called a free ride on the coattails of the people who've paid. Is that an economic problem, or is that another red herring?
No, the free rider problem is an actual problem, but it's remember, the right to work is not just free reign. A state can choose what level of right-to-work laws it's going to allow, or actually what level of negotiation it has. So there can be, I think they're called fair fee or something like that, or fair share fees that have to be paid by non-union workers to pay for the collective bargaining or what have you. So you can have gradations of right to work from completely closed shop to complete free for all.
Now, you used to work for the Fed here in St. Louis. Pardon me. So tell me, and the Fed in St. Louis analyzes the regional economy, including Missouri and other areas in its beige book. Has economic growth slowed to the point in Missouri where something like a right-to-work law is a necessity in order to try to goose the economic growth again?
I think that it would assist it, but that, and I think this is where we actually agree quite a lot, there are bigger problems in Missouri than right-to-work. So even if whatever effects there are from if we went right-to-work, I think they're dwarfed by other things.
Charles, I think Howard and I would agree that, to take the private sector workforce, which totals about 6% of all the employees at work, to single them out and say they're the reason for the lack of growth in this economy is wrong. That's just not the case. There's 90% of the workers are non-union in this country.
So this comes down to, in both of your minds, I guess, more a political move than a strictly economic move.
It's totally a political move. It's a way for those members in the various states that push right to work to get campaign contributions and fill their coffers. It has nothing to do with economic development. It has nothing to do with helping workers. It's hurting workers. And just think about the Tea Party. The Tea Party wants less government in our lives. What this does, a right to work law, tells the employers in that state that you cannot sign a contract with a union even if you want to. And it takes away the rights of the employees and the workers in that corporation.
Now, Howard, if we've got bigger fish to fry economically, as an economist, then when you look at right to work, is this sort of I could take it or leave it in terms of actually improving economic conditions?
Well, so I think it actually does improve conditions, and I think at the I'm always looking for small gains, and in this economy, I guess any small gain is.
And the economic improvement from right to work would come from?
It would come from job growth, and I would agree that people in unionized jobs would see lower wages, but that the gains in employment would be elsewhere in the economy.
Yeah, and
it's tough to pin down.
But what we do then is we take more low-wage workers and have the government take care of them. If right now, if you go to outstate Missouri, there are no unions in outstate Missouri. Where's their jobs? Where's their jobs? Why aren't people flocking to outstate Missouri? Why aren't all the fast food restaurants in outstate Missouri? They're not there either, and they only pay minimum wage. And these people are subsidized by us that work for a living, and the government. We provide them with a ton of benefits, and that's what right to work would do. That's why I say it hurts workers.
If we get this thing on the ballot, Howard, and this is a loaded question, do you think we're going to get a reasoned discussion of economic issues, or do you think we're going to get more grenades tossed that have very little to do with reality, trying to scare people one way or the other?
I can answer your question with another question, and that's name one time when we've had
when it hasn't.
Well, one time, it was most recently during this special session in December, when Boeing was talking about bringing, 8,000 jobs here. We, for the first time in this state, had both government, labor, union, non-union, the chambers of commerce, the legislators on both sides, the mayors, the councilmen, whomever, all doing one thing and saying, let's bring Boeing here, and look what we did. We gave Boeing a heck of an opportunity, and that's what we can do when we work together.
Yeah, Howard, final question for you. If you were sort of the czar of Jefferson City and you said, okay, economically, there's something we've got to work on. If it's not right to work, if we do have bigger fish to fry, what is it? Where should the state be looking in terms of economic policy to try to improve the economy?
Education, and that's it. necessarily more money for education, maybe reallocating the money.
Reforming education.
A lot of reforms. Obviously, we have some failing school districts. And even school districts aren't failing, they're turning out
And Howard, I think
bad.
you would agree that employers are looking for a skilled workforce, a highly educated, skilled workforce.
If you want people to earn high wages, then they have to be productive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a good thing our next segment is about education, so we can segue gracefully. Howard, Howard, thank you for coming in, my friend.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Charles.
Bob. A pleasure,
Howard,
as always. When we come back, we sit down with Missouri's education commissioner to talk, among other things, about whether the Normandy School District could go bankrupt without emergency state aid, and what's that do to the students there. We'll take a look at that when the Jaco Report returns. Please stay with us.